The views and opinions of any of the guests of After Hours AM are not necessarily the views and opinions of After Hours AM, its hosts, its staff, or any of its affiliates.
Welcome to the After Hours program.
Are you ready?
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Now broadcasting live from the After Hours AM studio, Joel Sturgis and Eric Olsen.
And we had a devil child. Devil child got going out. Appointed paper and that well. Devil child got sold to buy. My baby had a devil child. She got horns on her head and a heck on fire. Demon seed at night, breeder wish your desire. A dead shot of gun.
And good evening, everybody. Welcome to this edition of After Hours AM. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis. Is anybody else there?
Yes, you didn't turn my way. Eric Olsen and
Dr. Clarissa Cole.
Wow, you didn't hear anything. Cool. I could have said anything.
I heard nothing.
I could have been like, that Eric, he has a rubber butt. And every time he turns around, he goes, putt, putt, putt. So.
That would have been about the worst you could have said.
Well, that's my 3-year-old's big thing today. You have a rubber butt. You're nuts. You have a rubber butt. Every time you turn around, you go, putt, putt, putt. And she laughs for like 10 minutes after that. So anyhow, getting back to the serious business of After Hours AM at hand, better known as the Three Amigos, of course, of true crime. And Erica, I know you've got some news to listeners. I'd like to get to that right off the top, if you wouldn't mind. If you feel like talking about it, I'd love that if you would.
Oh, sure. It's all therapeutic. I certainly learned that. I felt that last week. That's for sure when we were discussing it. Yeah. So my dad, who I've been talking about, who was in rather serious decline with the congestive heart failure, and then he ended up getting MRSA via a procedure, and he just couldn't fight it off. As tough as he was, even though he had just overcome pneumonia only a few weeks before that, and he just kept bouncing back, and that's what everyone keeps saying. God, we thought he would bounce back from that, but no, it was just too much. His heart was too weak, and all the organs ended up going, just all, kind of all the stuff you would anticipate. And he did pass away on Saturday. It was very sad. It's really hard. I keep having the waves of sorrow that apparently is the norm. Everyone keeps saying, yep, that's how it goes. You get a wave coming through, and then hopefully it's gone pretty quickly. And other than one super major meltdown, I think it was 2 nights ago, that is how it's worked. It's just been a quick wave. I'm very sad. Something triggers it. And then I'm all right. And often it's in the middle of a phone call. So I'm talking away. Then I break down and melt and sound like a blubbering idiot. And then I'm fine again. It's bizarre. So, yes, the service is tomorrow. And we've kind of been gearing up for that as far as what happened. Obviously, we did not want that result. That's the bad part. But on the other hand, he was 84. He had an amazing life. We were just commenting amongst ourselves. We've heard it from lots of other people since we put the obituary together. I mean, wow, he did a lot of things. And we figured out he did visit actually more than 100 countries in his life. He did a lot of things, and he went to every Summer Olympics between L.A. and 84 and London. So, I mean, he was Mr. Olympics. He has his tremendous collection that I'm going to kind of curate and try to put together into some sort of exhibit. So there are many things that we have to celebrate, and that's what we're focused on. This was a tremendous guy who touched a lot of people's lives, and you always want it to be longer. 84 isn't 94, and it's not 104, but hey, it is 84.
Yeah.
And almost all that time, for other than a very brief period, brief periods really just in the last year of his life, he was quite functional. He had an excellent quality of life. He did all kinds of wonderful things. He really helped out with my kids. When wife and I are super busy and doing our own things, he helped out until really very near the end, basically till he couldn't drive anymore. And that was only the last year or so. And even so, he was always there mentally, and he was himself. So, and last I will say about it, so that we're not belaboring it. When the time came, we're at the absolute ground zero for such things. We were literally in the cardiac ICU of the Cleveland Clinic. That's like the best place in the world he possibly could have been at the time. And when he wasn't in pain, he came to. He had been sedated for the breathing tube. They stopped the sedation. They took out the breathing tube. We were all there, everyone but my son, who is in Finland. You've heard about him many times. He couldn't make it. They're coming in October. But other than him, who my dad did Skype with on Thursday, last Thursday, which was kind of his last really fully lucid and all there day, which was a great day for him. He talked to Chris. He saw the babies, the twins, and Chris's wife in Finland. So even though Chris wasn't physically there, he was certainly there in spirit. But everyone else, all the other grandchildren, his other children, and really super close friend, the minister showed up. He did revive. He came to. He opened his eyes. He spoke to us. So it was like a bad Lifetime movie as far as cliches goes. He died peacefully, surrounded by family and friends. He really only lasted a few minutes after they took out the breathing tube. And, of course, again, it was very difficult, but we are focused on the positive because that's what he would have been. He said the last real words that he said to us that Thursday before we left Thursday evening was, "I remain optimistic. I am calm. I'm ready." So I guess it's about as good as it could have been given the terrible result that we lost my dad.
Yeah, and again, Eric, all of us give our condolences, and there has been an outpouring from the listeners as well. I want to thank everybody for that. And thank you for keeping Eric and his family in your prayers and really caring. We actually have listeners that care, and that's great. That's the great part about the show, is they're invested in us. And we're invested in them. And when something does happen, they really are there to kind of, cheer us on or tell us, hey, too bad, things like that. So we're blessed that way. And again, your dad was an amazing person, amazing man. He also raised an amazing son, you, Eric.
Oh, thanks.
And so he touched a lot of lives and is continuing to do so, both through you and his grandchildren. So,
and now great-grandchildren.
And great-grandchildren. So, again, our deepest condolences. But we will move on from that because, like you said.
I made it through that.
You did. You did.
Without breaking up once.
You did. You really did. And man, again, deepest condolences, and we all are here for you. And we will continue to be there for you. So,
Thank you. And for those who think it may be a little odd that I'm on this week, it's important to me. I really did. It's therapeutic. I wanted to kind of convey to everyone what had happened since we did talk about what was going on last week. And I agree with Joel. It's really nice to have people out there who do listen and who do care. That is a wonderful thing. And I do appreciate it very, very much. And we are so committed, and we said this last week too, to really making these shows, these Wednesday and Thursday night shows, the best that they can be. And we've both been distracted. We've all been distracted by a lot of things. And I know you guys know how important a job Clarissa has. And, she's got a lot of obligations. I mean, she is the real McCoy, working for the state of California penal system and giving us her time in what would otherwise be spare time. So we've all had a lot of stuff going on, but we're absolutely committed to making these shows the best they can be, to promote them as best we can, and to really kind of move it to the next level and professionalize. So as part of that, I really wanted to be here. I'm going to do my best to be here tomorrow night as well. It's a little more iffy because we do have the service tomorrow, but it's in the afternoon, so I should be able to make it, and I'll certainly let Joel know in advance about tomorrow night. But I'm very excited about tonight because, man, besides covering all the amazing true crime news that we typically do, both serious and bizarre and hilarious, we have an amazing guest who has put together really quite an outstanding documentary that's been on HBO now for the last couple months called Mommy Dead and Dearest. And she is a really fast-rising young woman. She's just late 20s, filmmaker who has put this thing together, Erin Lee Carr. So we're very excited to talk to her in the second hour.
Well, she also did the documentary, The Cannibal Cop, as well.
Exactly.
And I watched that
Clarissa
one
has
today.
covered that before, that case. So
and it was,
absolutely, we want to talk about that as well.
Yeah, definitely talk about that. And then tomorrow night, of course, get your rock and roll ready because we're having the Ghost Wolves on tomorrow night. I'm really Carly, the lead singer from the Ghost Wolves, will be joining us and talking all things paranormal and rock and roll and kind of going in that direction. I look forward to that show as well. So you're not one of my first day my new tongue, guys. I tell you, I actually hit my mouth right before showtime.
Don't hit your mouth.
I shouldn't say I hit my mouth. My little one headbutt me in the mouth.
Oh,
and oh my God, that hurts! And I have a bleeding sore, and I'm trying to talk, and so excuse me if I stumble a little bit. I'm like, oh my God, this really hurts.
Relate.
Oh gosh,
I
so
tell you,
excuse
so you don't
me.
feel bad. A headbutt from a toddler.
Oh God,
when Lily was 18 months old. She didn't do it on purpose, but we met heads, and her hard little cranium literally hit me in the forehead, knocked me over, and almost knocked me out.
Man!
Stars.
Oh, I took one right in the mush by James. He's my 1.5-year-old.
It was unbelievable. So your head just did that to me. It was like a freight train. It was like LeBron James driving on me.
It really does hurt. And it's like, really, you had to pick all times? All times to do this? You pick now when I actually have to go talk for a long period of time? Thanks, kid. I'm going to remember that later on. I'm going to remember this. No, but you're right.
You're just going to pop him in the mouth right before prom or what?
No,
hard head.
Yeah, retribution won't happen. He's too cute. He's one, so you can't seek retribution on the poor boy. He doesn't know what he's doing. But anyhow, getting back to what I was saying, we got a couple of great shows lined up for everybody, but we're switching gears a little bit now. I've read headlines. Clarissa's read headlines, but the people have spoken. They love you more, Clarissa. We do the headlines. So, and I'd like to make this a point that this first hour will, from here on in, be brought to you by the Criminal Code. If you've never gone to thecriminalcode.com, you are missing a lot of things, guys. You can look at bios, you can look at rundowns of all the serial killers, get the latest news, and actually follow a lot of what she talks about on this show, on the Criminal Code. So definitely check that out. That is your true crime source right there. Forget everybody else, and remember, thecriminalcode.com.
Thank you, Joel. Yes, I try to put. I'm taking requests too. If you want, a profile of somebody that is not yet on the website.
That is odd that you were to mention that. I had a request actually, not to throw this right on you, but we had Andrew Phillip, and let me pronounce this. Cunanan.
Cunanan.
There it is.
Versace, yeah.
And that was, and evidently there's a 2020 special coming on about this, and they were kind of curious. The listeners were kind of curious your take on, because they're calling him a serial killer. Was he indeed a serial killer? And what do you know about him?
I would, from what I remember, I think Cunanan was a spree killer. which is kind of what I remember, and that is more typical of guys, and women who go after a public figure like that. Like Hinckley going after Reagan.
Yeah.
They might take more than one person out in a short period of time, which people are saying that that's the definition of a serial killer. But a serial killer has to have a definite cooling off period in between, and I don't know if Cunanan did off the top of my head. I know he went after Versace for some very specific reasons. No, I would love to do a profile on him. That would be interesting.
Absolutely. That came across the old Facebook feed. Curious about this individual. And I said, I don't know who he is, but I bet you Clarissa would have some insight on what he did. And he was more of a spree killer.
They call him a serial killer. I'm just looking it up. Like Wikipedia is calling him a serial killer, and that is incorrect. It was over a 3-month period. There was no cooling off period in between, so he probably didn't. He's a spree killer, but that's okay. Wikipedia is not infallible. And I don't know that I've actually really done a spree killer. I've done mass murderers like Charles Whitman recently, but no, this would be a new one. So yeah.
Very, very cool. So look for that write-up to be featured on the Criminal Code.
Yeah, I can do it next week. That'd be fun.
That write-up, and you can learn more about this person, way more than a 1-hour television special can give you, and really get the doctor's work up on that. And see what you think about this guy and whether or not he's a serial or spree killer. That is the question. But getting back to what you came for, of course, that's True Crime Headlines, again, brought to you by thecriminalcode.com. Clarissa, you are at the helm. Where do we go?
Well, I wanted to start with, more serious, then get into the more ridiculous after that. But I figured, what is more serious than the Vatican?
Oh, not much.
Right?
A heart attack.
True.
Oh, God. The hats they wear? I'm not sure. So
they're so pointy.
They're silly, aren't they?
They
really
are.
They're
silly. It's very Monty Python-esque, I think.
Those
hats.
They're whimsical.
They are. So Vatican. I didn't realize, by the way. So maybe you guys, because Eric, I know that you have traveled quite a bit. Joel, I don't know if you've traveled
here and
as
there.
much.
Here and there, I've traveled.
So are Vatican cops real cops? Can anyone explain this?
I think they are.
Are they?
Oh yeah.
They are.
Now they are a sovereign country.
Yeah,
the Vatican.
They are.
So
it is. You're good. Yeah, very true, Eric. Sorry about that.
I mean, so maybe they're federal. Almost more like army, military. But the Vatican is literally a country. It's a sovereign nation within Rome, and they have I think most of the services. The actual services, not that all that many people live there, but are covered by Rome. I know they have an agreement with Rome, but certainly certain aspects definitely take the form of an actual national government.
This has popped up on Facebook. Eric, tell us the difference between the Vatican and Vatican II.
Oh.
Well, Vatican II was a pronouncement. It was kind of a change in the rules. It's shorthand. Vatican II is shorthand. The Vatican itself is a thing, and it's basically two different things. It is both a sovereign nation. It is literally a government. I mean, if you look them up, they're right there listed under all the countries of the world. And of course, it's also the seat of the Catholic Church, and it's where the Pope lives and where all of the highest level management of the Catholic Church is based in the Vatican. Vatican City, technically, is what it's called.
Okay.
So Vatican II is simply shorthand for a series of changes or I think proposed changes.
So it's not the suburb of the Vatican.
That'd be awesome.
It is not a suburb, although that would be
with rent-a-cops.
Exactly.
That would be highly amusing, I must say. Like a walled-in development.
Exactly. With a gate.
A gated community. Yes, exactly.
Little electric cars and tiny hats.
They're on Segways
like we have
running
right
around.
Here in Aurora, Ohio, we have Barrington. There are gated community.
Well, everyone's got to have one.
So anyway, to the best of my knowledge, that would be more or less the correct answer. But yeah, it's always interesting. A lot of people do not know that the Vatican City, I should say, is an actual sovereign nation.
I did not know that. I was
with diplomats and
really
everything.
Wow, so they have their own government.
Their own government.
And obviously the Pope is the president. Come on, he's the prez.
Well, I believe he is the sovereign, but I don't think he has the title of president.
Gotcha. Okay, now why is the Vatican, Clarissa, all up in an uproar? Why is the Pope on a rope over here all mad?
He's mad. Apparently, the Vatican police they raided a drug-fueled gay sex party. Yeah, at the apartment of an aide to one of Pope Francis's key advisors. So apparently, this
that's
house,
a shocker.
That really is. Ooh,
is it?
Not really.
No, not at all.
I'm surprised this doesn't have more often.
If someone
To
would
be
have
honest,
come to me and said, "Where would it be most likely that the police would raid a clandestine gay sex party?" I would have said, "I don't know, Vatican City."
And you'd be right. Cardinal Francesco Coco Palmiero's secretary.
Wow, say that 10 times
Whoa,
fast.
nice pronunciation.
Yeah, no kidding. I would have slaughtered
I practiced, people.
That came out like
a pro.
Banana yogurt.
It really did. It really sounded us great.
That was amazing.
Apparently, it belonged the house, or that's his secretary, and he had recommended this secretary for a promotion to bishop.
No,
but I guess the prospects aren't looking so good now.
No, not after the sex gay party with the drugs got busted up.
Yeah, but you know what's interesting? What I found interesting about this article is that they arrested the priest and they took him to a clinic for detox for the drugs, right?
Sure.
Because he got drug charges, but gay sex is not illegal in Vatican City.
Really? I would have thought for sure that would have been like one of the big rules.
I kind of thought
right
so too,
below
since like
blasphemy.
Eric, you're saying they could kind of make up their own,
on the fly.
Rules.
Oh, by the way,
they can.
It's not illegal anymore. We just repealed it.
A super brief sidelight here, just to clarify. Here we go. The politics of Vatican City take place in a framework of an absolute, theocratic, elective monarchy. Man, does that sound like a bunch of contradictions in terms?
It really does.
In which the head of the Catholic Church, the Pope, exercises ex officio, supreme, legislative, executive, and judicial power.
Wow, he does it all.
Over the state of the Vatican City.
That explains the hat.
Are certain U.S. presidents jealous?
They really are. I can think of one that'd be really jealous.
Really jealous.
They're very jealous. Like even turning more orange.
All right, back to the story. Sorry about intervening there. Back to the story. Here you go.
Well, no, I mean that's presumably it. I mean, this guy he's going to detox, by the way, for the third time.
Oh,
and yet
jeez.
they still wanted to promote him to bishop, even though he clearly had some ongoing issues. But this party may do him in.
Well, I'm thinking it probably will. I don't see him getting past this. I mean, it made it into the New York Post after all.
It did, which is kind of strange. So I'm thinking that is probably the end of the road. Although the Catholic Church likes to sweep things under the rug too.
Oh, they might do that.
It's getting harder and harder to do that.
It is with cell phones and all.
Well, I assume you guys have heard I thought that's what this story was going to be about. One of his absolutely top advisors, I mean, tippy top, a cardinal from Australia, or I should say the cardinal from Australia, has now had to go back to Australia to face criminal charges of child abuse.
What?
Oh, is that Pell? Is that what we're talking about?
Pell, yes.
Cardinal Pell, yes.
Pell.
That
he has had to literally physically go back to Australia to face these criminal charges. It is no joke.
Wow.
But thank goodness that one person is finally facing actual criminal charges. I have never understood this, that when, all these sex abuse scandals, especially that happen over here, and they never have to, why are they not being arrested? Why is the Catholic Church allowed to give them some sort of treatment and reassign them? It makes no sense. Finally, someone's going to face some justice.
Good question. I would have thought for sure he would have ran to Vatican City to seek asylum.
Well, he was there. He agreed to be extradited.
He was taking sanctuary at the Vatican City, hoping, maybe they won't call me.
Well, I don't know that he was necessarily taking sanctuary, though he would have had sanctuary. It was just too prominent. It was too public.
Yeah.
The church itself just could not withstand harboring him. I mean, let's face it.
Well, very true.
He agreed to go. He didn't fight it. Let's put it that way. To go to Australia to face these charges. So at least give him credit for that.
Exactly.
Whatever small modicum of credit is due under the circumstances.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, where do we go next, Clarissa?
Well, I thought this story was kind of interesting. So now you know how Walmart is, right?
Yes.
We've multiple times we've talked about
know how Walmart.
We all know how Walmart is.
Well, you know what is kind of like Walmart, especially in the middle of the night?
What's
is
that?
McDonald's.
Oh man, I've been there so many times when I've tied one on. Go get Big Mac.
You really?
Oh yeah, I'd be 3 sheets of the weight. I want a couple. I want 2 Big Macs.
Bell. I thought Taco Bell was.
Well, we didn't have a Taco Bell.
It is for me.
Late night
Taco
impaired.
Well, we didn't have Taco Bell, so it was either that or Hardee's or whatever. It was all grease, no matter what you're getting, so it all tastes the same. Hey kids, you ever heard of tequila? 'Cause I'm on it. No.
There is something special about the magical wonderfulness of Taco Bell. When a person is impaired. Now, I have only heard this.
Pronouncing the words. I get your buka baka ika. Nah, just give me a taco.
Come to me. I am Taco Bell.
It's true. It always helps. It does. And you know what? I'm not going to blame it on anybody else. I'll say that from personal experience. I have gone to Taco Bell when I am impaired.
You've been inebriated? You've been drunk?
What?
Really?
Yeah,
I might have been a time or two.
All right, but we were talking about McDonald's.
We
yes.
were.
So apparently, late night, McDonald's has been having some issues with like rowdy people.
You don't say.
Yeah, usually drunk. Right?
Well,
so
I would assume. Yeah.
now they're trying something. The fast food chain is employing something mostly overseas, in Australia and in the UK. They are now playing classical music.
Soothe the savage
At
beast.
night. Yes.
That's
just
what they're
at
trying
night,
to do.
not during the day.
Yeah. Soothe that savage drunken beast so he won't destroy your store.
So is it to do just what Joel said, or is it to drive them away?
I know, right? Well, it works either way. I'm not sure, to be honest.
Maybe half and half.
Well, maybe if they can't make them run away, they can at least soothe them so they're docile.
Classical
Perhaps
music
so.
is supposed to calm people,
It
and
is.
apparently,
Especially if you're a plant.
Yeah, well, yes, those plant studies. Apparently, it does work. They said that it encourages more acceptable behavior.
I'm going to start blasting Mozart in my house. That way my little heathen children will start listening to me.
I think, honestly, it's slightly even more, it's more subtle than that. In other words, I believe within classical music, as within any musical genre, there are certain kinds that work better than others as far as subduing people. That's why, for example, when you hear classical music in a soothing environment like an elevator or an office or whatever, it's not the big, large, bombastic anthems. It's not haranguing opera. It's soothing, low-key classical music.
It's not Flight of the Bumblebee or anything going on.
Yeah.
No, it is not, and it's not Flight of the Valkyries or whatever.
Which would be awesome.
Yeah.
It's not Wagner. It's the low key nocturnal tunes.
Man, maybe I should start playing that as bumper music on the show.
Would be soothing.
A little soothing music in between, especially an ultra scary episode where we're talking about demons straight from hell. Throw a little Bach on.
So let's, for example, and I know we don't want to beat this one either, but for example, one of the sources of classical music that many people not particularly familiar with classical music do have in their minds is the Disney movie Fantasia.
That is
right?
true.
Ah, yes.
Yes,
That
of course.
soundtrack. I mean, almost everyone has seen that, even if you're not a big classical music fan. So think about the different segments within that. So Night on Bald Mountain, by the end of The Sorcerer and the Apprentice, I mean, it's whipped into a frenzy. It's feverish. Or The Rite of Spring, Stravinsky's. So those are like really kind of clangy, loud, blood boiling in a positive way music. So you wouldn't use that. But there are other pieces in there that are very calm, very soothing, very low key, and those are the ones that you would use.
Oh, well, so very interesting. But we gotta go to break, and I guarantee there is no classical music in the break. So we come back, more headlines brought to you by the Criminal Code. Don't go anywhere. Be right back right after this.
Let the rumors spread. Don't you try to catch my blind.
This is Jen McGowan, founder of Wayward Souls Promotions, a company dedicated to helping individuals, teams, radio shows, and others that are seeking exposure for their individual events, conventions, and shows. We offer a wide variety of advertising, such as web-based article, social media posts, podcast advertisement, and so on. Contact us at paranormalpromotion@gmail.com, visit us on Facebook at Wayward Souls Promotions, and visit our website at www.waywardsoulspromotions.com.
Anavar Media LCC is a dedicated team of professionals committed to helping business development scale and protect their websites, mobile applications, enterprise software solutions in the Northeast Ohio area. Locally owned since 2012, our client-centered values truly sets Anavar apart. Contact us today to learn how you can get 25% off your first project. Call them at 234-380-4852. Again, that's 234-380-4852, or visit them at www.anavar.com. Again, that's www.anavar.com. Hey everybody, this is Joel Sturgis, and did you know that After Hours AM and America's Most Haunted have a great new website out there? You're going to want to visit America's-most-haunted.com. There you can get all the new content from all the writers for America's Most Haunted, as well as the great haunted headlines everybody loves each and every week, as well as catch After Hours AM live right there, along with podcasts, past shows, and get to know your hosts, as well as contact us all in one stop. You're going to love it. You're not going to want to go anywhere else. So come to America's-most-haunted.com today.
What's happening, hot stuff?
And welcome back to After Hours AM, the Criminal Code. And this next half an hour of true crime headlines is brought to you again by the Criminal Code. And of course, for all your true crime needs, stop on over to thecriminalcode.com. It is now 10% duct tape free, so you don't have to worry about that. No one will kidnap you there.
And with us this evening are me, Eric Olsen.
That's right.
And
Dr. Clarissa Cole.
There we go. And I am, of course, Joel Sturgis. And we are happy to I'm just kidding. I was trying to soothe everyone into there, like the Mozart we were talking about. See if that actually worked if I came in with a very nice, soft, monotone voice. You're getting very sleepy out there. No, you're not. Okay, no, let's move on. Wow.
I feel like I'm on NPR or something. That was very.
You are.
That was. I love NPR. But that was
yeah. Yes, I love NPR. Getting back to what people want to hear, true crime headlines. Let's hit her again. Where are we going next, Clarissa?
Well, this story is it's really disturbing. Let's put it that way. We're going back to Chicago just for a brief moment because I want to put this out there in case people are not aware of what, I used to live in Chicago, so this is rough for me to even read this. There were more than 100 people shot over the 4th of July weekend.
Oh my
really?
God.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's an enormous number of people.
Wow.
Considering that most cities have a full count of maybe 100 or a couple hundred in an entire year.
It's unbelievable. How many were killed?
I don't know. There were at least 101 people shot between Friday afternoon and early today, and over half of that number were in the last 12 hours of the 4th of July.
Man, that's a lot of people.
Number.
That would explain why people jokingly call it Chirac.
Oh my goodness. I know that people have been, and I know that it's been increasing in recent years, but that is just staggering.
That's crazy amount of people. 100 killed.
100 shots.
I am surprised now in some ways now, and hear me out here before everyone goes, oh my God. I'm surprised that they have not put Chicago under martial law yet with how much violence is there. I really am.
The president was threatening it.
Yeah.
I was just really surprised that they have not actually pulled the trigger, so to speak, and made them martial law state where, this is until things get sorted out, this is the way it's going to be. Curfew, the whole bit.
And the Chicago police are releasing statements like, we have to change the underlying cultures. Yeah, I think we've gone way past that, okay? Like that, it's just such a passive sounding statement for something that is clearly out of control.
It sounds more like a war zone stat than it does a city stat.
Agreed.
That's disturbing. That it sounds more like something you would hear involved with a war zone. 100 killed yesterday during the battle. This is more. This should not be happening in a city. A once great city, and I know a lot of people love Chicago, and Chicago is a great city. I love it myself. I love the Natural History Museum. I love places in Chicago, but that doesn't stop the violence because it's mainly happening now, and I'm going to go out there. It seems to me, unless I'm completely wrong, the African American community seems to be hardest hit by this violence in Chicago.
Yeah, it's mostly on the south and west side.
I was gonna say south side Chicago has notoriously always been. Even when I used to go there as a young guy, I used to love blues music, and I used to go see Johnny Lang there. Happened to be a friend of mine. He was from this area, and they used to call him Kid Johnny Lang. I don't know if you guys ever heard of him. But I'd go see him, and he'd go play at these clubs in south side of Chicago, like the Blues Factory and stuff like that. Wow, it was a really, really touch-and-go place to be. It was just the violence that you could hear gunshots outside while they're playing. It was really a surreal time. That's why I haven't never gone back to the south side of Chicago. It only takes a couple of gunshots to make you go, oh, wait a minute, maybe this is not the place I should be. And it doesn't seem like it's gotten any better. In fact, it's degraded even more in the 20 years since that time I went down there.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think that a big problem, I think, because Cabrini Green was still in existence when I lived in Chicago. And I know that once they shut down Cabrini Green, a lot of those people had no place to go. And there were, not that it was a housing project community for those that don't know. And a lot of it just had to do with the poverty, but there was a lot of violence in Cabrini and a lot of gang activity in Cabrini, and that just got dispersed, and I think a lot of it got to the south side. The south side was always bad, Joel, like you were saying, but I think with the addition to the people displaced from Cabrini, it just got worse and worse.
It did get worse. It really did, and it's really, we talked to Adam Seltzer on the show, and he loves Chicago. In fact, he's a tour guide there. And he even had to admit, being someone that's lived there lifelong, that the city has changed. And it's gotten way more violent than it ever even used to be. And it just seems like it's getting worse and worse. I don't believe that the city government can get a handle on it at this point. I think that statement of, well, we have to change the underlying problems, that's a bunch of BS. That is, you know what? That would have worked 30 years ago. But you have gotten to a tipping point, Chicago, that you may not be able to get to that place again without basically martial law and getting things under control.
Oh, yeah, they're at an emergency. This is crisis point. 100 people shot over a holiday weekend. I mean, that is a crisis point. This isn't like thinking of how to change the culture. Yeah, that's when things are under control. That type of statement doesn't work right now.
That's when people are arguing about parks.
It's like New York in the 80s, for God's sake.
Yeah. It's like, they're not arguing about parks here. People are getting shot. You know what I mean? It's a true violent unrest.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't believe that. I was looking at the headlines and I thought, well, when they said 100 people shot, I thought, I don't know why, but I thought to date, this year.
Oh, no. Let me Google that quick. We have time, right? How many people were shot in 2016 in Chicago? And, of course, it's right there in Google. I didn't even have to finish it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, how it pops up with options. Oh, you could go here and look at that. Chicago had more than 8 murders a month in 2016. Okay. Chicago crosses the 2,000 shooting victim this year. This is, of course, 2016 stat. Wow. Over 2,300 people were shot in Chicago in 2016. As of this time, this was as of July 4th of last year, 2,300 people were shot in Chicago.
I can't even imagine. This is
101 weekend.
Yeah, man. So, I mean, imagine how many now did 2017. They don't have that stat out yet. But I would imagine it's going to be bigger.
And when you look at
now it says in
New York. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. In all of 2016, there was 2,988 people killed by gun violence in Chicago.
That seems like an enormous number.
That's bigger than my city population I'm sitting in.
And New York City last year? New York City, okay, a huge
the jungle, the concrete jungle,
First crime, 990.
Jeez. Oh, man. Well, I ain't going to Chicago on vacation, tell you that much.
I mean,
it does sound pretty out of control. And, of course, you know what you're fighting. You're fighting the city poobahs do not want to give up any level of sovereignty. So that's why they downplay and, it's just a matter of this. We'll tweak this or we'll tweak that. Well, it sounds like it's really
we'll tweak it out there. Yeah, we'll tweak that. Yeah, no problem. But getting away from the sad, sad story of Chicago, where do you want to go next, Clarissa?
Well, this next one is actually a public service announcement. Okay.
Good.
And and it applies to your state, Joel. So
really?
It's perfect. Yeah, because if somebody is listening in your state, they will. Okay. So it's Suburban Minneapolis Police Department. All right. They have good news for a person that made a donation recently.
Really? What did they donate in there that's making a difference? Or what did they accidentally donate that maybe they shouldn't have and they're getting it back?
Yeah, exactly, right? So they donated some clothes, which is really nice, to a Once Upon a Child store.
That is nice. That's a good thing to do, paying it forward.
Exactly. But apparently, one of the clothing items also had 111 grams of marijuana in it.
Oh, holy crap. Wow. That's a lot of pot.
That's hilarious.
So somebody, let me get it straight, some mental giant here in my fair state of Minnesota decided that they were going to donate some children's clothes to Once Upon a Child. And then, of course, they accidentally donated as well 111 grams of marijuana along with the clothes. Okay, then. Now, the police, I would imagine, are trying to bring the two back together.
They are, and they put this is a great thing that they put out there on social media. They said, the police, if you accidentally donated 111 grams of marijuana along with your clothing earlier to a local store, please come into the police department so we can reunite you. We know you spent a lot of time dividing them into these perfectly measured baggies and must be missing them.
Reunited and feels so good. Yeah. Reunited.
Why was it in children's clothing?
Exactly. That's number 2 question.
I have no idea, honestly. I mean, who would think to look there? Did somebody like bag it all up all perfectly, and then they're like, hey, the in-laws are coming for dinner. Hide it. And
hide it. Hide in the kids' clothes. I'll never look there.
in the donation box.
Yeah, right there. I'll remember to pull that stuff out. Don't worry. Then it gets donated. Where'd it go? Oh, crap. Oh. That would be hilarious now if someone stepped forward. That was my plan.
Nobody has yet. I can't
imagine.
Yeah, I can't imagine why they wouldn't step forward.
Maybe they're hanging out in Vatican City.
Maybe they're seeking sanctuary there. Going, help us. They got the stash.
Bizarre.
Yeah, that is very bizarre.
I love the pot in the kids' clothes stories when they come along.
That's
every week.
Every week, that's right. But it didn't happen in Florida, so, just saying.
I do have a story from Florida.
You do?
No,
okay.
you don't.
I do.
And by the way, Clarissa, you're rather glib with that. The
Yeah,
in-laws
I
are coming
heard
over
that.
line. Is that something you've run into before?
No, I haven't.
Just
it's the scenario
again,
that popped into my head.
off the tongue like banana yogurt.
I know. Listen to her. I do have a Florida one. I like that. Okay. Whip it on us here. Tell us all about the Florida mayhem.
Okay, well, in Oskaloosa County, the sheriff's office, they got somebody came in to report that their iPhone was stolen. Okay, and iPhones they're freaking expensive.
Yeah, they're like
people.
$600.
Oh my goodness,
Yeah, they're
that's
not
so
cheap.
okay. That's a lot. That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of dough right there. It's a lot of money.
It is. So they had their iPhone stolen, and what do I do? I want to get my iPhone back. And generally, when that happens, you do not get your phone back.
Generally not.
The sheriff's office was thinking. They were thinking, and they thought, you know what? Let's call that phone, and not just call that phone. Let's make a FaceTime call to that phone.
Oh, no way.
Whoa, good thinking.
And the guy picked up?
Yes, he did.
What?
It snapped a picture, a face shot of the guy that answered, and they found him. Yeah.
Hilarious.
Wow. And
another
and
criminal mastermind.
Yeah, that was pretty...
Professor Moriarty.
Yeah, that was pretty smart right there. Yeah, let's go ahead and we'll answer this FaceTime. I don't know who it is. It's a stolen phone, but we'll find out.
Who does that? You're getting a FaceTime call on a phone that you stole.
Well, yeah. I mean, you might not want to do that.
Yeah. Well, he did, and now he's been arrested, so now he has a different type of FaceTime picture, his mugshot.
Exactly, and maybe he uses his Facebook pic.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, what's next? Where do we go next?
Massachusetts.
Okay.
We don't hear much out of Massachusetts.
No, we do not.
No, typically cooler heads prevail.
They do.
Well, and I don't know. You can judge. Maybe this is a cooler head. I mean, I don't know about this story. A Massachusetts judge denied a man's request. He's going pro per. He's representing himself in court.
Sure.
He denied a man's request to juggle during his trial.
Juggle?
Why would he deny such a
how would you even
request?
approach the judge for that? Your Honor, I'd like to now entertain the court with juggling while I talk about my own defense.
Well, first of all, why would you ask permission?
Exactly.
Just start juggling.
Yeah, well, I'd be saying, what kind of clown wants to do this?
Well, funny you should say that, Joel, because the keystone to his defense is he's literally a clown.
No, really? He's actually a clown? And okay,
that is what he's saying.
Why would juggling now clear him of any charges?
Well, that proves you're a clown. Clearly.
Well, it does. It proves that you're a clown. But what? how does that help him with his charges?
Okay, well, he did, apparently, he's accused of trying to rob a convenience store, but it was with a toy gun, and he is saying that it was just a misunderstanding.
Well, he was juggling toy guns.
He
that
probably
was the problem.
I want to move to chainsaws next. Here, I'm going to start with the guns and then the chainsaws, and then maybe we'll stop at the fire. Yeah, I could just imagine that. Watch this, Honor. Look at me juggle. I couldn't possibly do this.
Why did he want to juggle?
Yeah, exactly.
To prove that he's a clown. And that it was a misunderstanding.
Oh, that the robbery was a robbery
Yeah.
was a joke. Ha ha!
Yes.
I'm a clown. Got it now. Okay. That didn't sink in right away.
And by the way, if we could get off of criminal charges just by saying, that was just a joke.
That's a joke. Come on, relax.
Wow. Note to Mr. Melendez that's not going to work.
Munchausen by proxy, just a joke.
That's all that is.
Yeah.
Big joke.
I wasn't trying to kill her.
No, relax. You're taking this too seriously. Why so serious?
Oh, God. The best clown ever.
Exactly. We got time for a couple more if you'd like to.
Okay, well, let's see. I've got one more from Florida.
Florida's always awesome.
Yes, it is.
It is
Florida's
a well
so good.
that keeps giving. That Florida. I love you and your alligators.
So this story says that most people hate their mugshots even more than the picture on their driver's license, but a Florida man found a wanted poster with his picture on it, pleasing enough to put on Facebook.
So this guy finds a wanted poster of himself, okay? And this mastermind decides, I got a great idea. This would make a great Facebook picture. And he actually puts a wanted poster of himself up to let the world know, indeed, I am running from the law. What? That's insane. There's got to be more to this.
You remember a few years ago that woman whose mugshot just, it wasn't even that she was all that particularly attractive. I mean, she wasn't unattractive, but for some reason that picture just kind of captured something and was alluring. And man, people paid for her bail and they covered her expense. Oh my God!
Look at the guy.
It was a huge thing. Look up like pretty mugshot or something.
Yeah, there was
like that.
a guy too that got a modeling gig.
Pretty girl mugshot, something like that.
Yeah, there was that guy that got a modeling gig from his mugshot as well.
Yeah,
you know what I heard about him, and he actually has a modeling career now, but he had some trouble because since he is a felon, I guess he got shut out of a show that was overseas because they wouldn't let him into the country because of his record.
Yeah, a lot of places. Most countries won't let felons in.
So his modeling career has been stalled.
Well, I would imagine. The old criminal history can bit him.
Yep.
Happen every time. Yep.
So this Florida guy, I mean, I'm looking at his wanted poster, and I mean, the picture's not bad.
No, he's smiling. He's smiling, and he's got a bit of a, he's definitely looks old for 41, if you ask me.
He does look old for 41. Nice blue eyes, but he's looking a little older.
He's looking
than
a
41.
little haggard, and he's 5'6", which is a short little dude.
He's only 5'6".
Yeah,
Wow.
he's just a little short guy. He's just fun-sized. That's all he is. He's a fun-sized criminal. And he decided that I got a great idea since I'm so fun-sized and all. I'm going to show people how tough I am. I'm going to put my wand.
You want to hear something interesting about
do.
fun size?
I do.
I was reviewing here. I found the pretty girl mugshot I was looking for. There she is. But there's actually a number on here who are classified as pretty girl mugshot. Anyway, I was reviewing. I'm trying to remember why this was, but I was looking at a very long list of mafioso or presumed mafia affiliates from Las Vegas in the 50s. Okay, so kind of the original wave.
Sure.
Or near the original wave of mafioso, running the town in the 50s. Every single one of them, and I'm not kidding, this was at least 2-3 dozen names that I saw and descriptions, every one of them was 5'7" or shorter.
They're just little guys. They're little
They were
fellers.
Italian. They were Italians who came from the East Coast to
But Eric, you're
to
like
Vegas,
you're like 6
mid-century.
You're like 6'10", right?
No, I'm 6'1". I'm not particularly tall.
You got me by an inch.
I am the low end of the tall scale. I'm the bottom of the tall. I'm the smallest.
Yeah. You got me by about an inch.
I was going to say, I think you're tall. I met you in person. You're tall.
I'm the smallest
on
of
the tall
tall
scale. Yeah, and I'm smack dab on the average scale at 6 foot.
No, you're above.
No.
Average, it's actually shrunk.
Really? It's like 5'10", I think. 5'9", 5'10".
Yeah.
Really?
5'10".
Wow.
Yeah.
So I'm above average in something for once in my life.
Are absolutely above average.
Yes.
And for women, I think it's 5'4", maybe.
My wife is 5 foot even.
Really?
Oh yeah.
No, I'm very tall for a woman. I'm definitely on
tall.
Yeah, I'm 5'7", so.
Well, yeah, you'd be.
You look taller than that.
You'd be a giant compared to my wife. Like I said, she's 5 foot even. But man,
I think you were wearing
boots. You make.
I was wearing boots. I was wearing heels. In heels, I'm like 5'9". I can look honestly wearing heels. I can usually look most guys straight in the eye. So Eric, you were still taller than me.
Gotcha. So you wear the heels now so you're on the same level with the guys. Am I correct when you're working? So there's no, looking down on you.
No. First of all, they're most of the time sitting, and
Gotcha.
Second, you always wear shoes in prison that you can run in.
Gotcha. See, now I was reading something about women in heels recently. That is why a lot of women, professional women, prefer heels. So their male counterparts cannot look down on them.
Oh, I kind of like it when a guy is taller to give him the illusion that he's more powerful.
Ah, yes, illusion is everything, isn't it?
Yeah, you want to look down a little bit. That's okay.
Just an illusion, because I bet you, Clarissa, if you had to, you could throw down with the best of them.
I am serious about the running shoes, though. That's actually a rule that you have to wear closed-toed shoes, closed-heeled shoes, so like open back shoes. And you have to, supposedly, it says in the DOM, the rules, that it has to be a shoe that you could run in if needed.
Could you imagine going to a prison that says, brought to you by Nike?
That would be awesome.
All right, I've done my research. The one I was thinking of, all right, so look this up. She pops up right away. She was called, the meme, she became a huge meme, just all over the place. Attractive convict.
Oh.
Really?
Google attractive convict.
I am right now.
You will see the woman I'm talking about. Did you remember seeing her everywhere?
I do. Yep. Yeah, she is good looking.
Ah.
Well, in that picture especially.
Yeah.
Well,
it's a nice picture. Yes. For some reason.
Oh yeah, that's her. Yeah, she
Yes.
she actually was a good-looking gal. I'm presuming still is, but yes, she was. All over the place in memes.
She was
and everything
labeled
else.
the attractive convict.
She was. She'll steal your heart before she steals your money.
Look at all these dopey memes. Guilty of taking my breath away.
Oh, God.
Arrested for breaking and entering your heart.
Oh, God. This is the worst one ever, though. Every guy in her cell block is a hardened criminal.
Oh.
That's the worst one I saw.
Ay. Okay. Well, anyway, there you go. Attractive convict. See, my brain often heads off into strange, dark corners.
Mine does as well, but that's when I find the cobwebs. Oh, I haven't been here in a while.
So, that brings us to the top of the hour.
Yeah, we are just about ready to bring Erin Lee Carr in, of course. She is the maker of the documentary film, Mommy Dearest, and that will be the top of the hour. But before we go, we have to mention again that this was brought to you by thecriminalcode.com, and I really mean it, guys. If you have a big interest in true crime or serial killers, really anything, and of course, Clarissa does take requests upon asking if there is somebody that you would like profiled on the website. She'd be more than happy to do that. But again, that's thecriminalcode.com. You will learn a whole lot quicker than you realize, and you're over there as well. A little bit about yourself, maybe even. Maybe you have a dark fascination with the macabre. All right, we'll be right back right after the Fox News. Don't go anywhere. But right back with Aaron Carr. See you after the break.
A warning to North Korea and China. I'm Chris Foster, Fox News. It comes from United Nations Ambassador Nikki Haley at an emergency meeting about North Korea's latest missile test. Fox's Gernal Scott's live in New York.
Chris, Ambassador Haley told UN Security Council members that North Korea's launch needs a decisive response.
Time is short. Action is required.
Haley says North Korea makes the world a more dangerous place and cited its treatment of Otto Warmbier, who was held captive and returned to the U.S. in a coma before his death, as an example of its true nature. Haley says a strong UN response must not target just North Korea.
We will look at any country that chooses to do business with this outlaw regime.
Haley says that includes China, which openly trades with North Korea, Chris.
Well, thanks. President Trump's about to land in Poland on his second foreign trip in office. Live in Warsaw, here's Fox's Simon Owen.
Chris, when President Trump slammed NATO members earlier this year for not spending enough on defense, one of the few countries he wasn't pointing the finger at was Poland. This country, next door to Russia and concerned about Russian aggression, is one of only 5 NATO members meeting a target to spend 2% of GDP on defense. Poland's government is roughly on the same wavelength as the president. It's more conservative than many European administrations. The president likely to receive a warm welcome. Chris?
Simon Owen, live in Warsaw, Poland. Thanks. If you count up until this morning, more than 100 people were shot over the long holiday weekend in Chicago. Police carried out a series of gang raids.
Chicago police did it by selecting their targets primarily on the east and west sides of the city. All told, cops made 58 arrests, confiscated 7 guns, and turned up 500 grams of heroin and crack cocaine. The vast majority of those swept up in the raids are being hit with felonies. Dakari Turner, Fox News.
Fair and balanced.
Council.
At the closing bell on Wall Street, the Dow pretty much flat, down about a point. The S&P up 3 today, the NASDAQ up 40. True Religion Apparel files for bankruptcy. The company's jeans were more popular about a decade ago. Some firefighters are racing from one wildfire to another as more and more pop up throughout the West.
The Southwest, mainly Arizona, is the most active area for fires right now, and the nation's number one firefighting priority is called the Burrow Fire. It's east of Tucson. Homes are threatened there. Robin Broyles with the National Interagency Fire Center says they expect monsoons to head to the area by early next week.
We expect to have some significant wetting rain in the Southwest, but as those systems dry out, as it moves across the West, we are probably going to be experiencing some dry lightning with those.
New fires popped up in Colorado as well as Nevada. Parts of the Great Basin area, including Nevada, Idaho, and Utah, are seeing extreme heat for the rest of the week. Jessica Rosenthal, Fox News.
Happy birthday to the world's most famous meat in a can.
If you think spam is just junk email, you're missing out.
You don't say ham, you say spam.
There have been commercials for decades for the meat in a can, but this is Spam's most memorable moment. The Monty Python skit featuring Spam, the meat that became famous helping feed soldiers in World War II. It's now 80 years old, introduced July 5th, 1937. I don't like Spam! But many do. More than 7 billion cans sold.
Don't make a fuss, dear. I'll have your Spam. I love it.
He should go to Hawaii, where per person they consume the most Spam in the U.S. Even have an annual Spam Jam Festival. Dave Anthony, Fox News.
Venus Williams makes it into the third round of the Wimbledon tennis tournament in England. So is the defending men's champ Andy Murray. Two-time champ Petra Kvitova is knocked out, though. She's working her way back from being cut by an intruder at her home last year. I'm Chris Foster, Fox News Radio.
And welcome back to After Hours AM, everybody. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis. Right along with me,
Eric Olsen and
Dr. Clarissa Cole.
Better known as the Three Amigos of True Crime. Now, Eric, we have a heck of a show tonight. Not only a great show, but a thought-provoking show. And those I always love when it does both, entertains and informs all at the same time. And so why don't you go ahead and introduce our guest tonight, and we'll learn more about, well, Munchausens. And, of course, Dr. Cole, she will be invaluable during that discussion because she can really go deep on that and explain even more.
Because she knows stuff.
She does. She's the smartest forensic psychologist I've ever met. Oh, I might be the only one I've ever met, but she is the smartest one I've ever met, and she is definitely an asset to the show. So without any further ado, Mr. Olsen.
All right. In Mommy Dead and Dearest, provocative documentarian Erin Lee Carr explores an intimate crime in the age of social media. Things are not always as they appear, especially in the case of Dee Dee and Gypsy Rose. And what starts out as a grisly tale of matricide morphs into a rabbit hole of deception. Child abuse, mental illness, and forbidden love converge in this mystery of a mother and daughter who were thought to be living a fairy tale life that turned out to be a living nightmare, featuring exclusive access to Gypsy from prison and a trove of police interrogation tapes, medical records, and secret conversations. Mommy Dead and Dearest is a disturbing first-hand look at a life arrested and the consequences of trying to keep someone young forever. It also explores one of psychology's most controversial conditions, Munchausen, I love that name, by proxy syndrome. Aaron Lee Carr is a New York-based director, producer, and writer whose newest film we just discussed, Mommy Dead and Dearest, had its world premiere at South by Southwest and Hot Docs in 2017, and it aired on HBO May 15th, 2017. The film ignited a discussion on Twitter and was received well by critics and audiences alike. Her debut film, Thought Crimes, The Case of a Cannibal Cop, premiered at the Tribeca Film Festival and Hot Docs Film Festival in 2015 and aired on HBO that very May. Variety named Aaron one of the 10 documentarians to watch as far back as 2015. Neil Genslinger of the New York Times called Thought Crimes absorbing and a primer for the century ahead. Dubbed the Cannibal Cop, former New York police officer Gilberto Valle was convicted of conspiring to kidnap and eat women. Darn it, I hate it when they do that. In March 2013, before working with HBO, Aaron hailed from the video team at Vice, specifically Motherboard, where her content has amassed over 25 million views worldwide. One of her short films for Vice, Click, Print, Gun, won a Webby in 2013 and gained 7 million views in its first week online. Welcome to the program, Erin Lee Carr.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me. That bio sounds a lot cooler than I actually am.
Poo-poo, perish the thought. Your coolness exudes. I feel it's coming through the microphone. My lips are freezing.
Excellent.
Well, Aaron, first I want to say a wonderful job on the documentary. And the way it was presented was very informative, and it was disturbing all at the same time. But it wasn't like, it was a disturbing to make you think. It was more about, wow, does this actually exist in this world? And indeed it does. And that, in a lot of ways, is the scariest thing of all. You know, beyond the one case that we're talking about, there must be thousands upon thousands of people inflicted with Munchausen's by proxy, which Dr. Cole will give us a complete rundown here in a minute. But I can only imagine gearing up to do this documentary and looking into this disorder. Were you shocked at how common it can be?
Yeah, I mean, my first introduction to Munchausen by proxy was The Sixth Sense, M. Night Shyamalan's film. You have that, Misha Barton character, and there's that iconic her sort of under the bed, and she's been poisoned. And so I hadn't really thought about it since. And so when I started looking into this case, and it was, inferred that there was a potential disorder, the fictitious disorder, Munchausen by proxy, I just I could not stop thinking about it, researching it. But it also was a lot and super, super heavy to sort of contend with.
I could only imagine, and Clarissa, of course, we'd love to hear your thoughts on the disorder and who it really affects.
Typically, Munchausen's is seen more typically in women than in men. But I think that part of that might be due to the fact that women are more typically the caregivers of the children. So I don't know if more men staying home and taking care of the kids, if that is going to change over time. But Munchausen by proxy. So Munchausen's is actually, so there's two versions. There's Munchausen's and Munchausen syndrome by proxy. Munchausen syndrome is actually where you make yourself sick.
Is that what we used to call a hypochondriac?
No, actually. And
okay.
Here's the difference. So a hypochondriac is somebody that always believes they're sick. That's a joke. You're like, what are you, a hypochondriac?
Yeah.
A hypochondriac actually believes that they are sick.
Okay.
They believe they have cancer every time they get a headache. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But Munchausen syndrome, they know they're not sick.
So they're playing a game.
They feign being sick. They'll give themselves poison to make themselves sick. Because with Munchausen's, they want it's called a secondary gain of the sympathy. So they want the sympathy from people. They want the support from people. Now, that's regular Munchausen's. But Munchausen syndrome by proxy is where you have either a child or an elder, like an elder parent that maybe is dependent on you, and you make them sick purposely to get sympathy from others.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And that is what Dee Dee had, the mother, in this amazing documentary about Gypsy. She had Munchausen's by proxy, and she was making Gypsy sick over a very long period of time.
Yeah. What kind of mind thinks like that and sees gain from that?
It is a very particular type of disorder. It is not that overly common. I do think that there are a lot of commonalities with borderline personality disorder because both are sort of there's a lot of manipulation involved in both disorders. There's a lot of secondary gain sought in both disorders. I think that there's a lot of overlap. I think that Munchausen syndrome by proxy, they also might qualify for borderline personality disorder. And that's basically all attention is good attention, even when things are going drastically wrong. Just attention, attention, attention. I need to be the center of everything, even if that is incredibly negative.
Okay. Negative or positive, I don't care. It's all attention, all the same. Kind of thinking. Okay. But really, that makes sense in a weird kind of way. I don't know.
No, it does.
It does. I don't know why I was able to wrap my mind around that. Now, Aaron, tell us about Dee Dee. What kind of individual was this? Well, I mean, I suppose when you were doing this, you kind of felt like you knew her. Right.
So it's hard to make a documentary when one of the main characters has been murdered. You want to be really careful about how you portray them because they're not here to speak for themselves. And so my co-producer Olsen and I, we were very thoughtful and, we really researched who Dee Dee was. Dee Dee grew up in Lafourche Parish in Louisiana. And she was good, she was good pals with her dad. She was a somewhat unremarkable girl. She got okay grades, but she always had sort of a penchant for mischief. And, she would later end up becoming a nurse. That's a hallmark occupation of someone who participates in Munchausen by proxy. But then this petty crime started to happen. She would forge bad checks. She would steal the car from her mom or dad. She wanted to get over on people. It was always this thing of like what she can get. She had a very unusual palate. These are all things I wasn't able to include, but she loved mashed potatoes. One of the only things she liked to eat was mashed potatoes with butter on it. She just was this really strange, weird girl, and she met a guy named Rod Blanchard who he worked on an oil rig. He is really handsome, and she said, that's the kind of guy I want. And she soon became pregnant, and she gave birth to her daughter Gypsy Rose. Rod was no longer in the picture at this point. The marriage was a very short one, and she just realized that I think I want something from this. And we saw from birth that Gypsy made just countless trips to the hospital, and it just sort of devolved from there.
No, Gypsy Rose, she was born, of course, Gypsy Rose Blanchard that we're talking about, and she was born to Dee Dee. Did she almost immediately try to make her ill, like almost from birth, or was this something, a light bulb that went on, in your opinion, of course, a light bulb that went on over her head going, wait a minute now, if I play a sick card, we can get a whole lot of stuff?
That's such a great question. I'm not sure. I know that she liked to be the center of attention. Yeah. Clarissa talked about this potential being borderline. I think that, she was not diagnosed, but that feels very real to me, given what I know about the case. She wanted to be in beauty pageants. So here was this little girl. She didn't have a dad. It almost made for the perfect story for people to give her things.
Yeah, I was going to say that, and that attention thing is absolutely correct, because people will go, "Oh, look at that Dee Dee! Look how strong she is! Look at her, right. Taking care of Gypsy Rose and being so strong and being there for her." And that would be the kind of attention I would assume somebody with that disorder be after, would be that validation of how great she is. Right.
Well, yeah, you see cases. Another kind of famous case of Munchausen's is the nurse Janine Jones, who, was infamous for killing. She was also a nurse and ended up murdering a fair number of children at a children's hospital pediatric ward. But what she was really looking for was that admiration of, my gosh, she can do it all. I mean, her goal was actually to resuscitate these kids, but it just didn't always work.
Something that I looked at for a long time was the Salt Mom case. Are you guys familiar with that?
I am not.
Where she was putting salt in the feeding tube?
Yes.
I would love to hear that case, what that is.
Yeah, it was Lacey Spears, and she was convicted, but allegedly she was poisoning her son to death. His name is Garnett, by slowly increasing salt in his feeding tube. Wow. I think that for me, it seems like these are rare cases, but people who get involved, people who are involved in Munchausen by proxy, the subject or the victim doesn't live. So we don't know about these things. The fact that Gypsy Rose Blanchard is alive today, that is part of the craziness of the story. It could have happened. It could have ended very well with her, with her mom murdering her. That's where it was headed.
Well, exactly. Now here's the thing, though, is when Gypsy Rose was being manipulated by Dee Dee to play sick, and indeed she was, and we'll get to that later on, play sick, they were given a house by Habitat for Humanity, trips to Disneyland. There were a lot of things because of Gypsy's alleged illnesses that she got monetarily that... Quite honestly, she was a scammer, like we kind of alluded to earlier, at heart. I mean, it was just another scam. That's the way I looked at it, anyway.
Totally. I think it started off when they were displaced because of Hurricane Katrina, Gypsy and Dee Dee, and they were given basically. They could stay in a hotel, basically, that was trying to help victims of Hurricane Katrina. And I think a light bulb went off above Dee Dee's head, and she was like, "Wait a second,
yeah.
I can turn this into something."
Well, my question to you though is, how the heck did she fool all these medical professionals?
Yeah, I mean,
you would have thought there would have been checks and balances in place for this very disorder to look out for it.
Man, I can't get antibiotics for a sinus infection in the winter. I swear.
Yeah,
it's true. I don't know how these people do it. You did mention that one doctor in the documentary, though, that did think it was Munchausen's. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. So the question is, how did she fool the doctors? Anytime we've ever shown the film, anytime people have asked me about the film, this is the huge question. Why on earth did doctors believe Dee Dee? And for me, as far as I could find out, basically doctors, especially in pediatric units, they have to believe what patients are telling them. They're trying to figure something out. And the huge thing here is that Dee Dee was giving Gypsy medication that supported some of the symptoms that she was reporting. There was a stolen medical pad underneath their bed. They shared a bed. And it seems like she was getting medications and then, basically force feeding them to Gypsy to when they got to the doctors,
So
she was
sick.
drowsy, she was salivating, she could barely talk. I mean, it's totally unthinkable.
Now, what diagnoses was Gypsy? What was she given for diagnoses? Because quite honestly, as you'll learn later on, these diagnoses were not what they all seemed to be, and weren't even real. But for the time being, what was she screaming at the top of the ropes to tell everybody, to make these doctors believe that she had these very serious diseases?
I think it all started off with that Dee Dee told doctors that she was a leukemia survivor. That, she'd been through a lot of, she'd had a lot of medication. They needed to be careful. A big one was that she had epilepsy. She was given the drug Tegretol. Gypsy was given the drug Tegretol, which made her teeth fall out. And a lot of the medications, it just was, a snowball effect. It affected her in different ways. And the huge claim was that she had muscular dystrophy, that she couldn't walk, that she was wheelchair bound. And then we talked to a doctor, Bernardo Flasterstein, in the film you see, and he says, I was looking at her, I was surveying what was going on, and for somebody who had muscular dystrophy, there would be almost no muscle in her legs. And through the MRI, it was like, her muscle mass is fine, it's normal. So he had a big suspicion that, she could walk. He wrote it in a paper. He wrote in his notes, he sent it to her general practitioner and said, I think that this is a potential case of Munchausen by proxy. Nothing was done with that memo.
Did she run away from doctors if they did kind of get clue to what she's doing? Did Dee Dee run away?
Dee Dee was, Dee Dee trained her. Dee Dee said, doctors were a part of her huge scam. That's how they got medical airlifts. That's how they got Disney World. That's how they met the cast of Harry Potter, something that I have not done, and she just said, when you're at the doctor's, you sit still, do not move your legs, do not talk, try not to listen. It's boring stuff, not for babies. And if you're good, I'll buy you a toy. It was just this really infantile sort of reward system.
Yeah. Well, I do notice now in every clip that you show where there's Dee Dee and Gypsy Rose, she's holding Gypsy Rose's hand. Pretty much every clip. Is that to kind of lead her in conversation?
Yeah, I think that was something that we noticed. That, there was always this watchful gaze that Dee Dee was staring at with Gypsy. I think it was a tactic. Every time they were in front of the news, every time they were in front of a doctor, Dee Dee would be holding Gypsy's hand, and if something bad happened or if Gypsy said something, she would squeeze it and tell her to shut up. It's you can't make this stuff up.
No,
if it were not in a documentary, you'd say that plot is a little crazy. Yeah. I mean, come on.
I'd say, Aaron, man, I love your work, but that part of it, come on now. But you're right. It was documented. It was real. It was collaborated. Everybody said the same thing. She would always hold her hand.
But when it's your like when someone has Munchausen's, and even when somebody has borderline, one of the primary foci of that is that they don't have their own identity in a way. Like, so with Munchausen's by proxy, like, I'm sure that over 20 years, she becomes so invested in this idea that Gypsy is not only sick, but she's a child that can't function on her own. That becomes Dee Dee's identity. I mean, what identity did Dee Dee have other than Gypsy?
She really didn't. She never dated again post Rod Blanchard. She didn't really work. She claimed to be religious. They did not belong to a church. Her whole life was creating and perpetuating this ruse. And it took a lot to keep up.
Yeah, I was going to say, how did she not slip up in 20 years? I mean, that's a big ruse to keep up. We're not talking about something small here. We're talking about this is a way of life. She should win an Oscar. If this is an actress, she would have won an Oscar But man, talk about the commitment to a role. 20 years.
It's very Kathy Bates in Misery.
Oh,
I swear.
That's what I thought.
She took some notes when she was watching that movie.
When I'm glad you brought that up because I was watching a documentary. I was thinking, I wonder if she did the block and the sledgehammer to this poor girl to keep her from walking. Kathy Bates.
That was probably next. She decided to walk. I mean,
yeah. I was thinking, wow, this reminds me of Misery. It really does. The caregiver that wants to keep the person down. That whole thing. And of course, now this is something that was in the documentary, and it actually shocked me. And reading the reports on this, her own family allegedly, I'm not sure if this is true or not, flushed Dee Dee's ashes down the toilet. Is that factual, or was that just something that they were joking about, that they despised her that much?
I was sitting there in that blue room, and at first the parents didn't want to talk to us, and it was Christy and Rod. That's Gypsy's stepmom and Gypsy's dad, who said, we trust these people. We've been working with these people. Will you consider talking to them? And then flash forward, I'm sitting in that room. I have to fly out in a couple hours with all my gear. And they're just like, yeah. And then we said we had to flush her ashes down the toilet. I'm not going to do the accent. I tried. It was terrible. I was literally, I had no idea what to react. Should I laugh? Should I cry? Like, they were laughing, but I didn't know if it was appropriate for me to laugh. So I was like, where are the ashes? And they were just like, they're gone.
Well, to be honest with you, I had to rewind that a couple times to make sure I heard that correctly out of their mouths. But, man, Eric, what do you think, man? I mean, you've been around. You've seen some strange things. What do you think?
I've been around. I've seen some strange things. I think this woman was, like you just said, Joel, number one, a remarkable actress. Mm-hmm. She probably, on some level, was able to also fool herself. So I do think that she was, a liar on that level. The best liars, the best actresses are able to convince themselves and actually literally are playing a role. I think at some point maybe she ceased to be an actual functioning human being with an actual life and a place in this world and became kind of like a self-parody, became a caricature, became a persona rather than a person. And everything was based on this child and keeping this child as young as possible, as feeble as possible, and pretty classic as far as the syndrome. She was then able to bask in the light of this poor little girl, sweet little girl, who the public loved, and she was the doting, loving mother. And I imagine at some point she decided, this is the best my life can be. This is the best I'm going to get out of it. I'm not sure how, other than the fact that everyone says how evil she was, after the fact anyway, that it never occurred to her, okay, I'm getting all this out of this, but I am literally killing, or in the process of killing, my child, this person who supposedly I care so much about and the world cares so much about. I don't know what she would have done after killing off the child. Would she have been able to continue to bask in the light? Certainly not if she'd been found out. Maybe push was starting to come to shove, and that was a subtext of why Gypsy took action when she did.
Yeah.
So those are my initial thoughts. It's so bizarre. It's so strange. Everyone, you can see it. I mean, just human nature. Everyone has a little bit of this tendency in them where they enjoy being thought of as this great caregiver. I mean, everyone does. Of course they do.
Yeah.
You're a wonderful
Some
parent.
more than others.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I was going to say,
but this is so far, into this area where nothing else in life matters anymore. So very disturbing. Anyone out there, if you suspect a case like this, don't jump to conclusions, but don't keep your mouth shut either.
Yeah.
Let people know this is something that needs to come to light, because even if it's rare, the fact that it exists at all is so disturbing and so unfair to the children. We got to try. Help the children
not just that, not just regular people, but if you are a care provider in some way, like if you are a doctor, I am a doctor. We're also worried these days about HIPAA. At least most doctors are. I mean, isn't that like the first thing they give you when you walk into a doctor's office now? Is the HIPAA disclosure form. We're also worried about that. But when a child's safety and well-being is on the line, if you suspect that that's the case, make a report to Child Services.
Exactly. And I will give the number.
Is your duty.
Yeah. And this is a national number, folks. If you do suspect somebody is abusing their child or is Munchausen syndrome, 1-800-422-4453. Again, 1-800-422-4453. That is a national hotline for child abuse. If you believe that someone is abusing their child, call that number. I'd rather you call the number and find out they're not being abused than worry about being, that person that didn't call. I don't want to get their business. Don't be that way. Call. Because you truly,
always call.
We are truly,
always call.
We are all truly the children's voice. So keep that in mind. If you do see it or witness it, definitely give that number a call. We got to run to break, everyone. Bottom of the hour. Man, this hour is just flying by. We come back. We're going to talk a little bit more, of course, or a lot more about this movie with Erin Lee Carr. And we're going to find out exactly who Gypsy Rose was. Was she exactly sick? Who was she and what did she do? Be right back right after this.
Something to do with your time, something to do with your peace of mind, something to do alone, nothing to do, so won't you pick up the phone? You turn me on, you tune me in, you get up so down, here we go again, you turn it up straight to your head, and I never live, and you're better off dead. Radio Red, I'm Radio.
Hey, you listen to After Hours AM, and if you're listening to us via podcast, make sure you like us, follow us, review us, tell your friends about us, tell grandma about us, and keep listening.
Hi, Tom Bodette. If pop culture is to be believed, roughly 40% of all people are actually vampires, or dating one. Well, undead or not, you can always save on a clean, comfortable room at Motel 6, even if you sleep during the day because direct sunlight turns you into a pile of sparkly coffee grounds. Speaking of which, we have free coffee every morning. You day sleepers may want to go for the decaf. I'm Tom Bodette, and we'll leave the light on for you. Book online at motel6.com.
Anavar Media LCC is a dedicated team of professionals committed to helping business development scale and protect their websites, mobile applications, enterprise software solutions in the Northeast Ohio area. Locally owned since 2012, our client-centered values truly sets Anavar apart. Contact us today to learn how you can get 25% off your first project. Call them at 234-380-4852. Again, that's 234-380-4852, or visit them at www.anavar.com. Again, that's www.anavar.com.
This is Jen McGowan, founder of Wayward Souls Promotions, a company dedicated to helping individuals, teams, radio shows, and others that are seeking exposure for their individual events, conventions, and shows. We offer a wide variety of advertising, such as web-based article, social media posts, podcast advertisement, and so on. Contact us at paranormalpromotion@gmail.com, visit us on Facebook at Wayward Souls Promotions, and visit our website at www.waywardsoulspromotions.com.
If you're listening to After Hours AM, do you have a question for the guests or even the host? That's really easy. Go ahead and email those questions to afterhoursam@gmail.com. Are you feeling like picking up the phone and being part of the show? Call us at 612-326-6874, 612-326-6874. Come be part of the madness.
That was just the start, baby. Oh, you know that.
And welcome back to After Hours AM, everybody. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis. Right along with me,
Eric Olsen and
Dr. Clarissa Cole.
And we are better known as the Three Amigos of True Crime. And tonight we're talking with director of Mommy Dead and Dearest, Erin Lee Carr. When we left off, we were kind of investigating who Dee Dee was, Gypsy Rose's mother. And, of course, as we found out, Dee Dee suffered from Munchausen's by proxy that she, again, projected upon Gypsy. Now, Gypsy was not exactly everything she was cracked up to be either, was she, Erin?
No. Gypsy is a lot of things, but a simple sort of damsel in distress is not one of them. The film paints her, and it has its complications. Who she is, why she did what she had to do, and how do we as an audience feel about her? I do believe that she is a survivor.
Yeah, I agree with you. I do, but she's also now a convicted murderer, or at least accessory to.
Mm-hmm. But wouldn't you?
First 10 minutes of the film, no. I was already saying yes. I'm sorry.
I want to say you got me there. I mean, did I feel that she had some right to exact revenge upon Dee Dee? Yes, I did.
Was there any way out? Go ahead, Joel.
After being subjected to that. And yes, Eric, great, valid point. Why not just run away?
Was there a way out?
What resources did she have, though? I mean, she was so infantilized. Like, just hearing her voice and how little girlish it sounded. I mean, this is, certainly not a normal age, like most of us at 18, 19, I think we would kind of know what to do, how to get out. Would she?
Erin and Clarissa, man. First, Erin, great film again, man. It really has us talking. So keep them coming. And we love your work, and we can't wait to see what comes next. Oh, my gosh. I cannot wait to see what you bring out next. But that being said, wasn't Gypsy complicit to some of this at some level? She knew that she wasn't ill. I mean, wasn't she a little bit complicit? Come on.
So, yeah. I mean, I totally understand your perspective, but we have to rewind it and think about this and say, not a single one amongst us, even I hope not, even your viewer or listenership, we don't know what it's like from infancy to be watched, to be looked at, to be told that you need to be in a wheelchair. She tried to run away. She was physically and emotionally abused after that. Yeah, try to walk away. Try to tell people what's happening to you. And, you could be murdered. So I think that it is really important that we don't sit in judgment and sort of, say that she's guilty, she could have run away. I really don't believe that. Yeah. I think that, she tried to run away. She couldn't do it. Her mom had her rights taken away from her and assigned to herself. I mean, this was insane.
I would
think
agree.
Go ahead, Joe.
No, you go ahead. Absolutely. No, I bet you. I'm just in awe right now. I really am, Erin, and you got me. And that doesn't happen often. And really, really, really thought-provoking stuff.
The next step, I mean, looking at Munchausen's and the trajectory, I mean, I think that Gypsy had reached the age of physical, certainly, maturity, and she was starting to act out mentally and emotionally too. I mean, my best guess is that Gypsy dying was the logical next step. And plus they have to keep ramping up the disorders. They have to keep getting more and more serious as the child ages to get more and more sympathy. So
true.
For Gypsy to fear death, I think is a very realistic.
Well, okay. Now we fast forward a little bit and we go to Gypsy as a young adult and she meets a boy. Am I correct?
Yes, she meets a boy online on a Christian dating site.
Okay.
ChristianDatingForFree.com.
Wow. I didn't even know it existed.
Either.
I thought you had to pay to be a Christian.
Yeah,
dating.
I would have thought for sure that would. I thought for sure you'd have to pay for that. So she meets who would have killed him, or her rather, did kill Dee Dee. Nicholas. Go
to John.
There it is. Go to John. And now he had his own bag of issues, so they say.
His own bag of issues. Yes,
Yes,
I think
I
that
like
is
that.
the exact right way of putting that.
Good job, Joel.
His own bag of
Wow.
crazy is what I wanted to say, but I wanted to be
Way to
kind
go.
of sympathetic, you know.
And that
No,
bag of
there's
issues.
no way. Like his parent, I think it was his parents that came in and said that he was Asperger's. That was sort of their explanation. But then the more we got to see of this person, there's no way that was the only issue. There's just no
Right.
way. That
Yeah.
is not consistent with Asperger's.
And we don't ever, I mean, we were very, you know, the editor, Andrew Kaufman, and I thought about, is us putting in that that's what his parents thought he suffered from, that's the reason, are we saying that this is, you know, this is why he did it? No, it's not. Nicholas Godejohn is a severely mentally ill young man who, you know, basically made it through high school but could not work. He spent all day online. You know, he could not hold a job. You know, you see in the police interrogation tapes, which had never sort of been seen before, you know, by anyone in the public. You know, he is a young man in nature. He stopped growing at a certain point. You know, I know that this is a really strange thing to say, but he is a victim in his own way. Like, had he met somebody else on that site, I don't know if he would have murdered anyone. You know,
No.
it's just there's so many tragic consequences
Yeah.
as a result of Dee Dee's actions. You know, he's in prison and is likely to remain in prison for the majority of his life. He's you know, his trial will be coming up soon. I hope he does not get life. Gypsy certainly did not.
Yeah,
No,
he
we'll get to
definitely
that.
has some violent ideation, though. And
Yeah,
that-
vampirism
that-
at one point.
I'm sorry, I'm a violence risk person. That's all I do for a living. His violence risk evaluation would not have gone well. I can say that
Right.
with a fair amount of certainty, just based on what I saw. So I do think that meeting Gypsy was kind of a terrible thing to happen. But do I think he never would have committed violence? I don't know about that. I only say that because of some of the very violent stuff he seemed to be drawn to just naturally. I mean, BDSM isn't supposed to be thought of as violent, but I think he probably did. And then talking about the rape fantasies about Dee Dee, that's a little bit concerning.
That was really twisted, that part of it, to me. And
Yes.
and then
For
of
me
course
too.
and then of course he talked about being a vampire at one point, which here's your bag of issues again. That's one of them out of that treat bag. And then, of course, the Munchausen, or not the Munchausens, but the Asperger's, he really was, again, in some ways, I think you guys brought it up perfectly, another victim of Dee Dee Blanchard at the end.
Yeah.
Because had that not been happening, she never would have been on that website hooking up with someone with his own issues. But then she was now, according to what he was saying at some points, most points, that he wouldn't have killed Dee Dee had it not been for Gypsy telling him to do so.
Well, he wouldn't have known her, I would think.
Yeah, but even when they said, would you have killed her if Gypsy wouldn't have told you to, he says, probably not.
Clearly, he did it for her. I don't know. I know we don't want to give away too much. I mean, this is a true crime. The results are out there in the real world, so I guess we've kind of given away the fact that yes, she was murdered, and yes, Gypsy was involved, and all of that.
There's so much more.
Yeah,
inside
there's
the
tons
movie.
more, tons
Like,
more.
that these just,
Exactly.
There's a very interesting McDonald's moment that we're not going to mention yet.
I love a good McDonald's moment because it's just a true crime story about McDonald's. But yes, we will not talk about your McDonald's moment.
Well, and if you can't, imagining, that's the thing about Gypsy to me that is so fascinating is that if you have not seen somebody that has been made sick or been made to feel that they were sick, like you think of a normal, even not normal 20-something-year-old, early 20-something-year-old and what they behave like. Gypsy is nothing like that. I mean, you really do have to see it.
No, what I saw was someone that was smart like a fox.
But also infantile. I mean, just young, emotionally.
Yeah.
You know, you're right. She's incredibly, I think, probably incredibly manipulative because she was raised by someone incredibly manipulative and at the same time has the emotional IQ of somebody that is so much younger.
Well, Aaron, what was your knee-jerk reaction to meeting Gypsy? I mean, did you have that feeling? I mean, what was your feeling of her?
Yeah, I think, I will be honest, I was really nervous before I met her. Just, when you're interviewing somebody in prison, when you're making a film for HBO, all of these things, 100 things need to go right in order for the interview to look beautiful, to sound great, but also for you to get that raw emotion. So I was focusing on that, and then she comes in this little girl voice, and she says, "Hi, Miss Erin," and she has handcuffs on.
Yeah.
And I just was like, wow, this is a insane job that I picked for myself. Which Gypsy am I going to meet today? And, I agree with you guys. She is IQ level, very smart. But she just has this thing where she acts like a little girl. She wants to figure out what you want from her. Every single person kind of met a different Gypsy Rose. I don't think she knows that she's being dishonest or manipulative. I think it's ingrained in her personality. And, I think it's really important that she keep in close contact with her dad and her stepmom to realize that there are people that don't need anything from her, that don't want anything from her. They just want to, exist and sort of be there. So my first impression was very childlike, but very smart, but was so brutally honest with me about what happened that night. And so I thought that was really, really impressive.
Quick question for you. How did they get away with second-degree murder?
Plea bargain.
No, but seriously.
Sorry.
It was lead pop.
I think it's the plea bargain.
Yeah.
It's the abuse.
But they had such a long record of them talking about the murder beforehand.
It happens all the time because the thing that I'd be thinking about as a prosecutor, Joel, would be listening, not just because you get a good sense of it watching the film. Aaron, you did an excellent job that way. But like if you were in a jury, you'd have to sit through hours, weeks of every single little detail of the abuse that Gypsy suffered.
Right.
And all it takes is one juror to say, I am not going to convict this girl for anything. She's a victim.
Gotcha.
And she gets off the hook altogether. And a prosecutor's not going to risk that.
Now that makes more sense to me because they don't want to risk an acquittal or a hung jury. They don't want to, bring everything out there and get sympathy from that jury. Gotcha. That makes perfect sense to me now. I thought for sure the prosecutor would have been like, yeah, I want to see a needle in her arm. For this. I mean, because generally speaking, that would be what, under normal circumstances, that's what most of us would be facing with that volume of evidence suggesting premeditation.
Her age, her personality, and the abuse would all mitigate against that.
Mitigating.
If she came in there with that voice and the pictures, just the assembled pictures and video that are in the film, that I think would push an awful lot of buttons. Hey, we're down to the final. I can't believe it. 13 minutes. I'd love to talk a little bit about the Cannibal Cop film, because that's another bizarre case that we've talked about. It has really important societal ramifications, as you conveyed so well. But
thank you. Yeah.
Perhaps give us a little rundown on it. Tell us what it's about for those who have been in a, cave.
I feel like, that case, it's about Gilberto Valley. That was a case that took basically 2 years of my life. It's so dear to my heart. It is about a young man that he was a New York City police officer, and he was convicted by a New York jury of conspiring to kidnap, rape, torture, and eat young women that he knew. He would look people up in the police database and he would fantasize about him. The prosecution said he was a serial killer in the making, but the defense painted a very, very, very different portrait. It was a young man who loved to look at fetish porn sites, who liked to talk to other men late at night about these women that he was kidnapping. They said he was harmless, he was never going to do it, and that it is so unlawful and unjust to use our own Google searches against us in a court of law. I was fascinated by the case, and I set out to talk to him, and I talked to him many, many, many times.
Well, To be honest with you, I kind of thought, it reminded me of the Cheap Trick song, "The Dream Police," there in my head. Mm-hmm. But really, yeah, thought crimes, and it seemed a lot of it was he was being convicted on thought crimes, but he did commit a crime by using the on-the-job police database to get more information on victims.
Right.
So that
shouldn't have done that.
Where the crime actually did lie more. But he got life, didn't he? He almost got life because, everyone kind of knows the story now. In fact, he's been on multiple radio interviews, and he's talked about the ordeal. But, the thing of it is Eric, we'd be so screwed if someone looked at our computer. Getting ready for True Crime Night. Oh, my God.
So would Rob Zombie and Stephen King. And, come on. Yes, definitely me. Oh, my God, my computer's full of this stuff.
A good friend of mine that happened to be a former military policeman was over, and we were watching the documentaries together, BS, back and forth. He's retired now. And he says, here's the deal is that would be like Stephen King being convicted of every murder he ever wrote about.
Exactly.
It's ridiculous.
A very dangerous precedent, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's what people fear most too. I think it didn't help that he was a cop, right? Because we expect our cops to be a certain way. They're supposed to be infallible. They're not supposed to have any of these urges or thoughts, and you want all that sort of kept private. There were just a lot of things going against him that were incredibly unfair, but I'm pretty sure that must have played a part in people's fear.
And it's just that we as a society could not understand why somebody would have these thoughts. And I really wanted the film to be sex positive. I never had anyone say that it's wrong and it's terrible to have these thoughts. We can't control what our sexual proclivities are. Gil Valley couldn't control that. Did he feed into it? Did he make it worse? Some might argue yes. But, I just don't think it's a crime to have those thoughts.
Yeah, I agree.
It's not a crime to express them either.
Yeah, write them down. Talk to people about these fantasies. No matter whether you, I, or anyone else either agrees or disagrees, it's kind of his right in a lot of ways to write this down. One First Amendment kick in.
A jury convicted him,
That's what I'm
and
saying.
People said he should rot. When I got to the film, he was awaiting sentencing. Everybody said that guy's scum. Don't make a movie about him. Why would you spend time? It's just like, before the judge overturned his conviction, he was deeply unpopular.
Yeah.
Yeah. What did you find? Did you find him to be a normal, functioning, nice human being?
I think he's a normal human being. Yeah, I think he did not like the movie. We got into feelings about it. He thought it was unfair. He said a lot of really uncomfortable, somewhat sort of scary things to me after the fact.
Oh, man.
And I said, I do feel that he was delusional in what he expected. But I feel like I could have done a better job, being straight with him as the film progressed. When I got to the case, I really thought he was being railroaded. And then, due to some interacting with him day after day after day, I did see that he had boundary issues.
Gotcha.
But I did not believe he belonged in jail, and the film always said that.
Yeah, well, we covered that. Eric and I think we covered that some years ago, didn't we? When that story broke, and we both said, "Wow."
we did. Clarissa, were you involved with that? We talked about that. Other than recently.
Other than recently, I haven't covered it on my website or anything. But it's something that I've talked a lot about just because I started my career with actual sex offenders. So, it's the role of sort of fantasy and the boundaries and, expressing oneself is a very popular topic in sex offender groups. And, and I think that, expressing yourself is not wrong, but occasionally playing into fantasies that, do cross societal lines or mores can become a problem. And it usually does mean that there are perhaps some boundary issues. So
now he had a wife and kid though, right? I mean, he had from the outside looking in, a normal life.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just shows us we don't know what's lurking behind the computer screens of men and women that we know. I think he got married young. I think he had a hard time discussing what turned him on. That's totally normal. He was a religious guy. I always have felt sad that he couldn't talk to anybody about, the thoughts of tying people up, that's what he sort of liked, and that it sort of escalated there, because instead of talking to someone and really thinking about this, he turned to the internet, and, that has a way of adding gasoline to the fire.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if my wife ever told me, hey, tie me up, do whatever you want, I'd still go fishing.
Just apropos of not all that much, kind of early on in the evolution of the internet, and I'm thinking kind of early 00s, I got involved really kind of doing research for a book a little before that. So I was actually using the internet back in the 90s as far as researching and whatnot. But as far as the sociological aspects or the cultural aspects, that was all kind of evolving and developing more in the early 00s. And I remember that a person's mind can really head off in any number of directions, including areas that you aren't even necessarily really that interested in. It's just kind of a passing whimsy. It's a passing curiosity. And what the internet has done is it has allowed passing curiosities to be very easily and readily researched.
You got that search bar sitting there saying, ask me anything.
Exactly. And so I think people are kind of jumping down more so these days in the last 15 years. I think people are pursuing at least the concept more vigorously or more deeply of some of these, what we might call deviant behaviors or thoughts. Not behaviors. Thoughts. More vigorously than they might have in the past. In the past, they may have just said, oh, well, that was weird. Why did I have that thought? That's kind of a strange thing. Whereas now, it's so easy to pursue. So, does any of that make sense to you, Erin? Do you see that tendency out there? Is that possible?
I do. I think it's possible. I think that we live in an age where this sort of curiosity there can be like a seed and it can grow. I think it's sort of we're in a new age figuring that out, and unfortunately, crimes are taking place because of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. You can, in a sense, see some of the fright, some of the fear that came from this case. I think people, I know I did. I immediately looked to all the worst of it, all the tawdriest aspects of it, and I said, yeah, fry the guy, Yeah. But in retrospect, I agree with you. He was being railroaded. He may have had some gray areas as far as boundaries, but he did not actually cross over into acting these things out, behaving upon them, and that really is where it has to be.
Quick question though, Eric, when you're
but
done.
Also,
I have
a federal judge overturned the conviction. So that's he talks right now when he gives radio interviews. He's like those charges didn't stick. I am exonerated from all the crimes that I've been accused of.
Were any of the I'm sorry about that, Aaron. Were any of the conspirators brought up on charges? The one in Pakistan, the one in England. Were they given the same treatment he was?
Moody Blues in England was sought after by law enforcement. He was his name is Dale Bollinger, and he was convicted of grooming a child. And I believe, and I should know this, but I think he got 7 years. They never found the guy in Pakistan. And there was a co-conspirator, Michael Van Hise, who, the Cannibal Cop was the big case, and he has just been sort of forgotten about. Yeah. We actually got to interview his lawyer, who is fantastic, and due to running time, we didn't include her, but that's always made me feel a little sad.
Sure.
Like there were other people who were involved in this fantasy that are still paying the repercussions.
Mm-hmm. Very true. Wow. Very, very true. We're almost out of time here, so why don't you tell the audience where they can watch these great films and all that kind of stuff.
Of course. You can see these two films, Mommy Dead and Dearest and Thought Crimes, on HBO. I'm so obviously thrilled to be working with such a great partner. they believed in these films, even though they were about these really disturbing, odd, very weird things. And, I have a lot of gratitude, and I think it just shows that there is an audience for things like this. And a large credit goes to Sheila Nevins, head of HBO Docs, who, has executive produced this, and Sarah Bernstein, who produces it. So HBO, go watch it.
Very cool. Very, very cool. Erin Lee Carr, everybody. Check out her films. You're going to love them. You're going to think. And you're going to want more when you're done, I guarantee you. On behalf of myself, Joel Sturgis, Mr. Eric Olsen over there, and the beautiful and talented Dr. Clarissa Cole, thank you for listening to this edition of After Hours AM. And, man, wow, crazy, crazy stuff out there. But remember, if you think it, they cannot convict. Thank you for listening to this edition of After Hours AM. And please remember to like us on Facebook and also follow us over on Twitter.